Hi guys, welcome back or welcome to my channel. My name is Simone and today I have another video for you guys which talks about the Canada Study Permit application process. Today I am going to be talking about how to write an SOP for a study permit, and not just any old SOP but a strong SOP. So we are going to be talking about all the necessary information that you should be including in your SOP to make it a very strong document. I just want to say before I do get into this video, I'm not an immigration lawyer or an immigration officer. I'm just going to be talking to you guys about information that I found in my own research and information that I used in my own SOP writing that ultimately got me approved for a study permit. So you don't have to do exactly as I say, it's just things that I found useful for my own experience. Okay, so let's get into the video. Okay, so I'm not sure if you guys are experienced in the Canada Study Permit application process, but your SOP is the most important document in your whole application. This is because your SOP is actually the only way the visa officer has a chance of getting to know your character and what your intentions are of coming to Canada, regardless of the fact you are applying for a study permit. So the visa officer doesn't have a chance to speak to you face to face. They can only go off of the fact that you have written a 2-page document. So you need to make sure that it is written well and it explains everything that the visa officer is wanting to find out about you. So there's actually 5 major key questions that you should be answering in your SOP, and we're actually going to go over those 5 key questions. That's a tongue twister. And we are going to be talking about ways that you can answer those questions as well. So let's get to the first question. Why do you wish to study in Canada in the program for which you've been accepted? To answer this question, you should really start by talking about your educational background and your employment history if you have one, because a visa officer is actually interested in knowing how you got interested in the program that you've been accepted to study in. Okay, so just give them a brief explanation of what you were doing in the past and how it came about to you being interested in what you want to study. Then you should talk about your future goals, your educational goals, your career goals, and really try to explain that in order for you to fulfill those goals, your next logical step in your life is to seek education. So really try to convey the message that in order for you to succeed in life, you need to have an education, well, particularly you need to study the program that you've been accepted to study at your chosen university or your chosen college. Okay, finally, you should really go into talking about why you chose your college or your university. So here is where you explain things like the reputation of the college or the uni, talk about the student services that they offer, if they offer scholarship opportunities, you should mention that. You should talk about the affordability of the program to you as well. You can even talk about 2 or 3 modules that the program is offering and explain why those modules are beneficial to you and your future goals. Okay, so it's really about explaining why it is you want to study this program and how it is going to help you in the next step in your career or in your education. The second question that you should be answering in your SOP is, why are you not pursuing a similar program in your country of residence or citizenship? So here you need to be presenting your understanding of how the educational system in Canada is different from the educational system in your home country. One very good thing to do is to actually mention the comparisons that you see. You could choose an institution that's offered an institution in your home country and compare it to one in Canada, and basically give them the evidence that you've done your research, because that's what they want to see. They want to see if you know what you're talking about, you've done your research, and you're not just wanting to come to Canada just for the sake of Canada. This is something that you have studied and done your research, and you know what you want to do here in Canada. Okay. Some things that you could mention, some differences, for example, is you could mention the multiculturalism here in Canada and how you want to be in an environment that is diverse, where you can meet new people, experience a different culture, for example. You could even talk about how you prefer the weather in Canada. That's also something that you can mention. Or you can mention how the institutions in Canada are internationally recognized in any country, so an education here would be something that is valuable to you and your CV, for example. So there's many things you can mention. Those were just a few examples, just to give you an idea of what you should be talking about. Okay, third question that you should be answering in your SOP is, how will your program enhance your employment opportunities in your country of residence or citizenship? So as a genuine student, your intentions and your future goals after you study should be to leave Canada after your stay. Even if you plan on staying in Canada and working, there shouldn't be any mention of you looking for a job here in Canada. So to answer this question, you really need to be talking about what the industry looks like specifically in your field back in your home country. Talk about why people who are studying your course are in high demand and how they are beneficial to the economy or the country as a whole. So yeah, you really need to do your research on that as well. Really try to reiterate the fact that in order for you to get a good paying job back in your home country, you really need this education, because at the moment you lack the necessary skills and knowledge for you to get those in-demand jobs. Okay, so make sure once again that you are up to date with what's happening in the economy and what's happening in the industry as well, so you can convey that to the visa officer as well. One thing I will say is, try not to mention too much technical jargon, especially when you're explaining things in your field. Remember, at the end of the day, the visa officer probably doesn't know what your field is about. So use language that even a teenager is going to understand. Okay, so yeah, do that. Just explain as best as possible. Fourth question that you should be answering in your SOP is, what ties do you have to your country of residence or citizenship? As I mentioned before, your intentions as a student should be to leave Canada after your stay. So to answer this question, you really need to be talking about what incentives you have of going back home. So they could be many reasons. They could be economical reasons, social reasons, or personal reasons. For example, you could talk about having a business back home. You could talk about having a job offer that you want to take up, or if you're already in a job, you could talk about that. You could talk about assets like your land and property, or even a very big one that you should be mentioning is if you have family back in your home country, specifically very close family like your parents and your siblings. That's something that you definitely should be mentioning, because that is a strong tie to your home country. Another thing is that make sure you're not just mentioning all these lovely things. You also need to explain your reasons for wanting to go back to these things. So for example, if you say I have a business back in my home country, so what if you have a business? You need to explain why you'd want to go back to it. For example, you could say, with the new skills and knowledge that you're going to gain from your program, you want to use them to enhance your business and grow your business, for example. So make sure you're giving an adequate explanation of why you want to go back to these things in your home country. Fifth and final question that you should be answering in your SOP is, How are you going to fund your education as well as your stay in Canada? We all know that with a study permit application, you need to submit a proof of funds documentation, and within the documentation, you need to have shown funds for a minimum of 1 year of your stay. That is a minimum requirement, which is absolutely fine, but sometimes just merely focusing on that 1 year of funds may not be enough. So you might need to go over and beyond that minimum requirement just to make sure that your proof of funds documentation is sound and there's no doubt in the visa officer's mind that you don't have the funds. Some people say that you should have a bank statement that shows funds for maybe 2 years or even your whole stay in Canada, but obviously depending on your situation that might not be possible. Another very, very important thing that you need to realize is that if you're going to be showing bank statements, for example, to show 30,000 Canadian dollars in your bank account, you need to explain where that money has come from, because you need to confirm that it has come from a legitimate source. One thing a visa officer does not want to see is money just dropping into your account out of nowhere with no explanation of where it's coming from, because that to them is a sign that you might have borrowed it from friends or family. So make sure you're giving an adequate explanation in your SOP as well where the money has come from. If you are someone who's, for example, paid your tuition fees in full and you've given them receipts, you need to mention that you've done all this as well. Don't rely on the fact that you have a proof of funds documentation and the visa officer is going to understand everything that you've given them in the documentation. Give an explanation of every single thing that you have provided in your proof of funds documentation. So tell them you've paid your tuition fees, tell them how much you've paid. If you have a scholarship, talk about the scholarship, how much you've given your scholarship. I even recommend that you write an equation that sums up all the available funds that you have for your stay in Canada. To that, I believe that will show the visa officer that you know what you're talking about. And just in case the visa officer makes a wrong calculation in your proof of funds documentation, they can always come back to your equation and see they might have done something wrong or calculated your funds wrong. And yeah, it just shows you know what you're talking about and you've calculated it and it's there right in front of them. A last thing I will say is, if you're going to be mentioning monetary values, make sure you have converted them to Canadian dollars. Make sure that you are writing down where you found that conversion rate and the date you are converting those figures as well, just in case they want to cross-check if you are telling the truth, or if the rate has changed and they want to use the same rate used on the day you used. So yeah, just make sure you are including all those necessary things. Okay, so those are all the 5 major questions that you should be answering in your SOP. I hope you have a better idea of things that you need to be including to have a strong SOP. The general idea, as you can probably see, is your SOP is meant to highlight your educational background, your future goals, what you expect to gain from your program, as well as your financial capabilities. Besides the 5 major questions that you should be answering, there are some other things that I would like to talk about that I believe are important to add to your SOP. So yeah, first thing I will say is that if you have taken a gap year, it is probably a good idea to mention that you've done so, because for some reason Canada immigration is very sensitive about people who take gap years. Obviously, if you're going to be mentioning that you took a gap year, you need to mention what you were doing, and having done something productive is going to look good on your part. If you, however, haven't been doing anything productive, then I'm not so sure. Another very good thing to mention is that you understand and intend to adhere to the conditions of a study permit holder. If you don't know what those are, I have linked them in my bio, so have a look at them. It just shows the visa officer that you know what is required of you and you intend to meet those requirements. Yeah, it's just something that can make your application look better. Well, application, but your SOP look better. Yeah, so you should consider doing that as well. Just to add on to that as well, you could also mention that you've previously traveled outside your country as well, if obviously you've traveled outside your country, and tell them that you've never overstayed or broken any immigration laws. Because to them, for some reason, it's you're guilty until proven innocent. So just mentioning that you travel out of your country, you've never overstayed, never broken any immigration laws, and you intend not to break any immigration laws during your stay in Canada. That is something to think about adding to your SOP as well. Okay, so that is all I have for this video. I hope you guys have learned something useful to use in your SOP writing. All I will say now is make sure that you are not copying and pasting different SOPs that you read online, because at the end of the day, the visa officer's job is to read SOPs. I'm sure they've read every type and kind of SOP under the sun. So copying and pasting from the internet is really not going to reflect your story well. Only you can write your story and you can reflect your personal circumstances. So make sure you are writing it in your own words. Another thing I will say is try to have a polite and respectful tone in your writing, because the visa officer, they don't really owe you anything. You are coming from a position of wanting something and you are asking them for a study permit. So there shouldn't be any demanding or being rude to them. Lastly, I will say is take your time. It doesn't have to take you one day to write it. It could take you a week or 2 weeks, and have your family members or your friends read over it. It can give you a new fresh set of eyes to read over it and just give you advice on how to change the sentence structure or something like that. But yeah, be serious about your SOP writing. Again, it's important, and obviously all the best with your applications. And thank you so much for watching. I do have more videos that I'm going to be talking about my experience with the Canada immigration process. But yeah, for now, thank you so much for watching, and see you in my next one.